Well, by popular request, I'm going to be taking a look at Prince Harry's chart today. Now, we're all well aware that there's a lot of turmoil happening in the royal family. Uh, King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer. Now we found out Catherine, Princess of Wales, was diagnosed with cancer. So we have a family that's in turmoil right now, and we're all very worried about them. So a lot of people are asking, what's going to happen with Prince Harry? But specifically, I've had a lot of people talking about or asking in my comment section, is Prince Harry going to end up back in the UK for whatever reason, whether it doesn't work out with Meghan or whether this whole situation ends up bringing Harry back? So there's a lot of people, there's two different sides that are kind of having it out about this. So there's some people saying that he would never be accepted back. And then there's other people saying that he would be welcome back and that people would want him back. So that's what I'm going to be trying to look at today. I'm going to be looking at the astrology chart to try to just ascertain, okay, is there a narrative that we can follow with the astrological timelines that are happening that indicate him leaving the USA and moving back to the UK? So that's what we're going to look at today. So for those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're interested in getting all my updates. By the way, I practice Vedic sidereal astrology. This might be different from the astrology you're used to, which is Western tropical astrology. So your sign may be different using this method. You want to make sure you go to the appropriate calculator online. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up Prince Harry's chart, and we're going to be focusing on the planetary timeline, and I'll explain that in a moment. Let's go ahead and pull that chart up right here. By the way, a quick disclaimer, this reading is for entertainment purposes only, and all these are just allegedly, all these statements are just speculation about the astrological energies. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out in Prince Harry's astrology chart is, remember in Vedic astrology, we use these things called the Vimshatari Dasha. I call it planetary timelines just so that people can easily understand what it is. But essentially, during certain periods of your life, there's certain planets that are active, and that's the predominant karma that's playing out in one's life. So Prince Harry just actually entered a whole new planetary timeline. So that's what we're going to talk about. He entered a Mars timeline. So Mars, and he just started that actually on March 11th. So March 11th, 2024. I was about to say 2023. And he's going to be in that timeline till March 30th. So we could just say March of 2025. So this is going to be influencing his whole year. Okay. And I'm kind of writing all over the chart, but we'll clean that up in a second. So Mars is right here. So basically, everything that's happening in his life for the next year is going to be strongly influenced by planet Mars. So that's why we got to really dissect, what does this mean? First of all, what does Mars mean? What does Mars mean being in the 12th house? It's in the 12th house. What does it mean that it's next to K2? So that's what we're going to be talking about, because there's a lot of interpretive, information that we can get out of this. So let me pull up the slide here. Actually, let me clean this up because we're going to come back to this later. But when we look at these planetary timelines, basically what's happening is the karma is, that planet is being highlighted. It's like you put it under a microscope. And so the karmas associated with that planet are triggered during the timeline. Even though your chart is generally active through your life, there's specific portions of it that are activated during certain periods of time. And by the way, this is all basically scheduled before you're even born, which is quite interesting to think about. All right, so let's go to the slideshow here. So remember, he's in the Mars Antardasha, and that's March 2024 to March 2025. It's in the 12th house of Scorpio. So the first thing I want to bring up is, when Mars is in Scorpio, it's in its own house. It means it's very strong. Okay. And it's with K2. So we're going to talk about what the 12th house means. And then we're also going to talk about what K2 means, because both of those, both of those are going to be important. Now, before we even talk about that, Mars itself, think about it. It represents things like warfare. It represents moving. So a lot of times people will move during Mars periods. It represents on a very primitive level violence, but it also can represent discipline. So a disciplined yogi would, meditate and they'd have a strong Mars. But Mars represents being in motion. So we know this next year is going to be extremely active. Okay, he's going to be running around. Could this represent just mini trips back and forth, from the USA to the UK? Yes, of course it could mean that. It also could mean international trips in general, since Mars is in the 12th house. Now, let's talk about what the 12th house means, because we also got to talk about that. So Mars is in the 12th house. It also rules the 12th house. Now, the 12th house is associated with losses. It's also associated with foreign lands, dreams, meditation, and prayer. Now, I don't know how spiritual Prince Harry is, but I do remember in the documentary, Prince Harry and Meghan, they had apparently a meditation coach they were calling. So I guess they do meditate. So there might be a lot of that during this time period. But this idea of foreign lands, it can represent, and I'm going to take the slide off for a second, but the 12th house can represent your experience in a foreign land. So I'm a little bit worried because Mars in the 12th house with K2, it can show two emotions. Okay, Mars represents conflict, so conflict in a foreign land, and then K2 can represent extreme disappointment in a foreign land. It can even represent separation, loss. So that's where I'm thinking this year is the year of turmoil for Prince Harry. So let me go ahead and pull, oops, I wanted to pull the slide back up for a second. Let's go ahead and pull that up. So losses, foreign lands, dreams, meditation, prayer. And then K2 is also associated with losses, separation, endings, extreme disappointment, isn't it? And it's interesting. There's a double whammy there. So K2 can have a lot of separative effects, just like the 12th house. So it's like a double whammy there. K2's in the 12th house, and it can, first of all, it indicates extreme disappointment. And I'm talking about when you're facing a period where K2 is involved, this is like extreme hurt kind of disappointment. Like something really affects you to your core. And, it's in a foreign land. So this is happening in a foreign country where he is right now. K2 can even represent divorce, because remember, 12th house does represent endings. So there's I do want to try to be objective about this. Worst case scenario, it could represent a divorce. K2 can definitely indicate a divorce. On a not so bad level, it could just represent disappointment, maybe wanting to move, maybe his illusion of what the life he thought he was going to have in the USA, it's not working out. Because K2 can also represent like dreams being shattered, ideas being shattered as well. So there's two different interpretations for that. I tend to think it's a little bit more of the extreme interpretation, though, because Mars is in its own house of Scorpio. It's a very strong planet. So I feel like this is a very forceful type of situation. Now, let's talk about the other aspect of this. So Mars rules the 12th house. It's in the 12th house from his ascendant, but we also want to look at the moon chart in Prince Harry's chart as well. So let me show you that in the chart, and then I'll bring back the slide up. So let's go ahead and pull up the chart. So remember, the moon chart is over here. I'm just kind of bringing your attention right here. This is the moon chart, but essentially the moon chart is just when you make a moon over here, the first house. Okay. And then you number it. Okay. So instead of Sagittarius, we're going to pretend that Aries is the ascendant. So that's what the moon chart is. Now it's really interesting. Let me clean that up again. So, because I'll be drawing all over this chart, is you'll notice that Mars, and we can highlight it over here too, it's in 8th from moon. So if you were to count the houses, it's 8 houses from the moon. So it's interesting, 8 houses from moon. And then we also have to remember it's in the 12th house. Well, it's already checking off two houses of the 3 Dashtanar evil houses. Remember, in Vedic astrology, the evil houses are 6, 8, and 12. So this period is triggering already 8 and 12. Okay, this is definitely a very volatile and very destructive period. The eighth house is associated with shocking events. It's associated with transformation, but usually transformation in a very negative way. Okay. Especially with Mars being in the eighth house, it can be a very destructive, almost volcanic type of force. Now, literally, it could represent a volcano, but I don't think there's going to be a volcano going off near them. But it could represent just a very destructive force. But eighth from moon also represents a destructive force on your emotions. Okay, so there's this. That's where I'm very worried about this next year. I feel like it's going to be very intense. Now, the volatility with the emotions could be on many different angles here. Okay, there could be some emotional volatility with his relationship with Megan, but also with what's going on back home. Okay, so there's a lot of upheaval happening, and this could totally, if you have things hitting you from both sides, this could be a very volatile, on the emotional level. So let's go ahead and bring up the slide. So Mars is in the extremely volatile eighth from moon, and this can literally represent being uprooted. Okay, in an extreme scenario, this literally can represent like the shelter you live in being destroyed and then being rebuilt. Okay, and you having to find a new house. That's like the most extreme interpretation, though, but I just want to give you that. And then there's also the metaphorical meaning of this as well. So the metaphorical would be more of like this sense of emotional contentment that you may have and it's destroyed, and you have to kind of adapt to a new way of life. Whatever's happening, there's a transformation. But I've seen that eighth from moon can typically represent being uprooted from where you live and moving. Okay, so when we think about destruction of shelter, it could just be a metaphor of like one house, you're leaving one house and you're establishing a new house or a new place of living somewhere else. Okay, that would be more of the likely interpretation there. Now, this represents eighth from moon represents shocks to the emotional sense of well-being. It represents disaster followed by a rebirth. And I do feel like there's going to be a rebirth, by the way, because Jupiter is going to be right after this Mars period. So there's actually a very positive period. If Prince Harry can get through this year okay, there's actually a very positive period starting in March of 2025. But he's got to go through this year of chaos, essentially. Now, I believe like I said in the slide, I believe this destruction could involve relationships, but also the foreign country he's living in as well. One thing I was actually thinking about, it also could represent chaos in the area he's living. So you'd have to, someone would have to let me know, isn't he living near Los Angeles or Santa Barbara or something in California? Well, there could be a lot of turmoil literally in the area or the country he's living in also. There could be some instability. So I also want to give you that interpretation as well. There could just be a lot of instability happening. Now let's talk about the next timeline that Prince Harry is going to be in. Now, to finish this up real quick, I'm kind of backing up for a second. This whole period could represent this need to move. Prince Harry needing to move. He's needing to leave this place. So I want you to know, if we're forming a narrative about what's happening, this could represent a move, a need to leave. Okay. Now what does Jupiter represent? That's going to be the next Mahadasha. And let me tell you, when you enter a whole new Mahadasha where Prince Harry is going to start March 2025 to 2041. Now, remember, that's the big period. That's the Mahadasha. It's divided into sub periods. Okay. So don't think that the 16-year long period is going to be monolithic, but we're going to look at what does Jupiter Mahadasha, what does the 16-year period represent in general? We'll discuss that just for a minute here, because I'll probably make more videos about it in the future. But and let me show you in the chart real quick. But Jupiter in Prince Harry's chart, it does rule the fourth house of homeland, which would be the UK. It represents mother, and then it also represents first house, the identity, like who you are. So let's go ahead and pull that up and let me show you in the chart. Let's pull that up again. So Jupiter, if you notice, it's in the first house and it rules the fourth house. It's actually a pretty positive planet for Prince Harry. It doesn't rule any of the negative houses. Okay. And it's a pretty positive house. Planet. Okay. And keep in mind that in Prince Harry's chart, Jupiter rules the fourth house. So when the fourth lord is in the first house, believe it or not, for everything that you think about Prince Harry, he is patriotic on a certain level. So he is proud about where he's from. He may be proud about, he served in the armed forces. He may be proud. There might be something about his identity that he's very proud about. He's proud of being from the royal family, even though he's come out with all these exposés. Okay, deep down he's proud of it. Now we don't know how much he's being influenced, outside of himself with that. But there's this period of homeland and your identity really being who you are. So this is what's got me, really thinking. He's in this year of turmoil, and then he enters this period of homeland and a sense of identity. Could this represent an uprooting of where he's from and going back to the UK? Absolutely. This could definitely represent it. Okay. Also, Jupiter represents children. Okay, so his children. So it's also going to be a time of family. So I feel like this year is going to be extreme volatility. There's going to be so many shakeups in the royal family, and I feel like this is going to be part of it. If you watched my prior videos, you all know that four of the royal family members are Cancer ascendant. So that is King Charles is Cancer ascendant, Queen Camilla, Meghan Markle, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. They're all Cancer ascendant, and for all four of them, Saturn is going through the eighth house. So this represents extreme changes and extreme transformation in the royal family, especially when you got four members of the family that are having the same exact transit. So this means there's going to be a total shakeup over this next year. And this is going to be influencing, I believe, Prince Harry in a very extreme way. Whatever this shakeup is, it's influencing Prince Harry to the core. This is a very emotional time. So we are yet to see this play out. One thing I want to remind you all is when you enter a new like Antardasha or Mahadasha, it can take a few months for that energy to come online. So remember, Prince Harry just entered this new period on March 11th. So we're still waiting for this energy to come online. But also remember, we just had the eclipses where the eclipses could be really activating what we're about to find out. Okay. And I feel like we're going to see so much happening in the royal family this year. Like all the charts are indicating. So it's going to be it's basically a buckle up because it's going to be a wild ride this year. Let me know what you all think down below. And I will be making more videos, of course, on the royal family and also celebrities and predictions. So thank you so much for all your support. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.